Welcome back. At the end of the last video, I mentioned that we need to fix up the normal map because these details on the sides of the turret are slightly skewed, and there's a few different reasons for that, and I'll be doing a video on how to fix these up with a few different ways later on. But this is a nice, quick and easy method. You can just go into Photoshop and select the one that's correct, send it to a new layer via cut and change the opacity down, and then you can position it perfectly over where it's supposed to be on the one that's incorrect. And when we save this out, it will fix up the problem. Do the same thing again for the one on the other side of the model, and it just fixes up that distorted light that we're getting on that part. And send it to a new layer via cut. And then if we just drop the opacity down so we can see through it, we can position that correctly over the top of the one that's got the error. Put the opacity back to full and merge the layers. And then if I zoom out and toggle the visibility on and off, you can see what difference that's making. Just remember to save it out. PNG. Okay, moving on, the color ID map that we made. I did make a mistake with this, and the mistake is that we've got ambient occlusion still on the high poly that we baked the color from. So when we select blocks of color, it's not going to select all of it because of the shadowing information. So what we're going to do is bring in our UV map and invert it. And if I select the correct layer and select those colors, you can see it's not going to select all the parts that are required for each UV island. So I'm just going to show you how to fix that up. Okay, so if we select, say, this side part here, just using the one select tool, you can see it selects everything apart from that middle area where it's got the shadow information. And if we just change the selection to include the part that's got the shadow on, so we can bring that all the way down here and just change to the polygon selection tool. And we just want to be just outside that white line, which is the UV space. And then we just need to wrap all the way around the back. And then that whole section is selected. We can now use the eyedropper to select the solid color that we want, followed by the paint bucket tool. And if we create a new layer to go over the top, you see when we fill that in, it gets rid of all that shadow information. And we just need to basically go around the whole model and do that for all the individual parts. And you can see here's one I made earlier with all the shadows removed. Can be fiddly in places. Alternatively, you can go back and rebake that if you want to. Okay, moving on, we're going to create some masks for each color group and then save them out. So I'm going to show you how to do that on the first one, and then it's literally just copy the same procedure for all the other colors. So you can see I've selected the blue color and made a new layer, filled it in with white. And then I'm going to flip the selection and flip the colors to black and fill everything else in black. And I'm going to save that out as mask 1. And it's simply a case of going around all the other colors and doing the same. So saving that out as a PNG. So I'm just going to time lapse the rest of those. Now moving on, we want to clean up the last blend file that we've got. So we're going to basically delete out everything apart from the low poly model. So if I just show all these collections, we can expand the cage, delete the cage and its collection. Same with the exploded part. Same with all of the high poly. And the reason we're doing this is basically to make it nice and light so that we can procedurally texture it without the file being too over bloated. Something else we can do is go into the Blender file and remove all the meshes apart from the one that's attached to the turret model, which is all of them apart from cylinder 004 in this case. These are all unused leftover geometry. Can do the same for the materials. Just remove all of the materials because we're going to start a new material. Just keeps the file nice and clean. Can delete everything out of the images as well, apart from the Machine Shop 02, which is the HDRI. And then just going to switch back to the view layer. And then just save the new file out as a PBR file. And this is where we're going to do all of our procedural texturing. So moving on, we're going to split the view and change over to a rendered view on the left and a shader editor on the right. And we're going to set up a new material for our low poly called turret. And what we're going to do is have one material for each of the parts of the model with a mix shader and use the masks that we've created to mask between them. So with 4 materials, we're going to need 3 mix shaders. So just going to duplicate those. And to go into the factor of each one, we're going to need an image texture, which will be the masks. It can be slightly confusing to the way you link these up. So if you just try and copy what I do on screen, you'll note as well that we do actually have 4 masks, and that's because one of them we'll also use for the, it's also part of the metal. So although we've got 4 materials, we only need 3 masks for those. But we've kept the other one anyway because 2 parts of this model are metal. And we can just combine those rather than baking out a metal map. It's much easier to just combine 2 maps in, say, Photoshop than worrying about baking a map out that's just black and white data. So the masks I'm putting in reverse order from 4, 3, and 2. And I'm just changing all of them to non-color. If I change the color of each one, you'll see each part of the model is separated by those material, the Principled BSDF shaders underneath. Just made a mistake with that one. That needs to be plugged into there and that into the top socket. And then if we change the color of that, we've got all these distinct colors. And we can see that we've got, for example, the red is the base material, the green is the metal base, the bracket that holds the ammo drum, and the cylinders at the front of the gun for the barrel. The blue is all the main bodywork. And we can then go in and change any of these materials and procedurally texture into any one of these BSDFs. Before we do that, I'm just going to organize them a little bit neater. It's just the way I prefer to lay it out. With the masks and mix shaders minimized, don't really need to see the contents of those. This is literally just my OCD organizing these. Once we've done with that, we can also add in another image texture for the normal map, which we've also already created. Change that to non-color as well. And then we want to add in a normal map node to pass that through first. And this can be plugged into the normal map slot of all 4 materials. And you'll see as I do this, everything on the actual model will get beveled. And you'll start to see all the panel lines and surface details that are everywhere. I'm going to put this down here for now. We may need to add to that if we've got anything that has height data. We can run that normal map through a bump node as well. We can do this as well for the ambient occlusion map we've got through a mix shader. We could also crunch this with a color ramp if we want to turn the effect up or down, but for now I'm just going to put in the base ambient occlusion map that we've got, again with non-color. Put that into the first color slot, set the mix shader to multiply it as a factor of 1, and if we copy in the base color that we've currently got, which is green, you'll see when I plug this in, it literally just adds the ambient occlusion to all the green parts. Control Shift D, we can move this down, keeping it connected to the map, copy and paste the color over, and again just connect it up, and we get the shadows on all of that material as well. May seem a little bit of overkill, but you can see the details pop out a lot clearer with it this way. Once those are all connected up, we're now ready. We can procedurally texture each individual map. Just going to save that out for now. And one last thing we can do is, if you remember the materials we set up for the high poly, I've copied the hex numbers for all of the colors into a notepad file, and we can just paste those in. And if we set the metal value and the roughness to the same, this will now look identical to the high poly that we modelled earlier when we picked out our colour scheme. So just going through piece by piece, and it's very obvious, like the blue is the main body. So you can just make a note of that, copy in the hex value, and you'll get the exact same material. And just adjust the metal and roughness as needed. So this one's 0.45. If we move up to the yellow, which is the front of the gun, the ammo barrel on the back, and the handles in the base. And this part's metal or metallic, and 0.3 on the roughness. And the last part is the metal base. So I'm just tabbing across. You can't see it because I'm only recording the Blender window, but I'm pasting that value, change it to metallic, and drop the roughness down to 0.3, and that's now identical to the high poly that we textured earlier. So we're now ready to begin texturing the model, and I'm going to do that in the next video, as I feel like this is more of a preparation video, so I'll see you there.